Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Team Oleksandr Uysk have welcomed the opportunity to face Anthony Joshua, with the WBO calling its mandatory, which is of course Oleksandr Uysk, who claimed that a number of months ago courtesy of his super champion status from cruiserweight. So he could come up having been the unified champion and claim the mandatory automatically, which he has done. His promoter, Oleksandr Uysk, has said, this is to boxingscene.com, all we want is for the WBO to send the letter for the winner to fight. And of course, right now, Anthony Joshua has a conundrum. Two mandatories are due. The IBF called Kubrat Pulev a number of months ago and ordered that he must have a shot before the end of May. And now with the WBO coming in, Usyk wants his shot. We just heard from Oleksandr Uysk saying, yep, send us the letter. And the WBO president, Paco Valcárcel, he's also told Boxing Scene on one side they have the IBF pushing for his mandatory. On this side, we have Usyk pushing for his mandatory. We have to decide because the champion cannot fight two people at the same time. We have to talk to IBF. After, we have to decide. So I guess push comes to shove here. The rubber is going to hit the road. What is going to happen? There is the potential for a belt to be stripped, or for Joshua and his promotional outfit Matchroom to work out a deal for one to go before the other, and that would probably require step-aside money. I would sort of bet that the WBO mandatory, Oleksandr Uysk, would be after the IBF, but who knows what could happen. And maybe Oleksandr Uysk and his team would push for the belt to be stripped, because after all, they would end up fighting potentially Joseph Parker or even Derek Chisora. And I've seen a number of people talking about the chance of Chisora facing Usyk for a vacant belt. Eddie Hearn, who promotes both loosely, Chisora is not so much aligned with Matchroom, but working with Matchroom through his manager, David Hay. But there is the chance that those two fight in about February. And I'm sure there would be some lobbying, if there was a vacant belt, for the belt to be on the line for that fight. But how viable is that? Because we've got a lot of different interests at play here. Remember, Joseph Parker is currently the number 4 ranked contender. So you have Usyk, the number 1, Tyson Fury, who's going to be fighting Deontay Wilder. Then you have Anthony Joshua. The rankings haven't been updated, so he'll dip out. Joseph Parker at number 4. And his manager and old promoter, David Higgins, has been lobbying for Parker to go into number 3 spot. So Parker and Higgins will be pushing for their cause for any vacant title. And then you can believe that David Hay and his fighter, Derek Chisora, would be pushing for the belt to be on the line for a fight if Usyk and Chisora is made for early in the new year. So there is going to be a bit of a bun fight if a belt is vacated, especially. But two, who knows if there is some scope to actually work out a deal and have some step aside. But I can see why Krasjuk is wanting to push the issue right now, because any way you cut it, Oleksandr Uysk gets a title shot. And if they can get Joshua stripped because he, say, goes and takes on Kubrat Pulev in the IBF, there's potentially a much easier fight with the likes of Derek Chisora or Joseph Parker. And when I say easier, I just mean relatively speaking. Remember, Joshua, a much bigger, taller guy than Chisora, and Parker about 6'3", Chisora about 6'1", Joshua 6'6", a bigger height and reach advantage over Oleksandr Usyk. And if it was to be Derek Chisora, I think there would be a number of fans that would be quite happy with that fight. He's had somewhat of a career renaissance. I would certainly favour Usyk in that fight because Chisora doesn't necessarily deal with movers that well. But guys like David Price and Artis Bilka, he's had wins over them this year. Carlos Takam in 2018, and that sort of was before a knockout loss to Dillian Whyte. But he's had a good 2019. He's built his profile back up. There's some demand for a Chisora and Usyk fight, possibly more than a Parker and Usyk fight, because you have to ask the question, where would they host that one? An Usyk and Chisora fight in the UK would be a pay-per-view event, definitely. Maybe they would have to have Parker and Usyk in the United States. Some of these things will matter, and there will be some positioning and horse trading behind the scenes. with different interests just in case the belt becomes vacant, trying to position themselves for their guy to have the shot. So it could become a little bit messy, even though it's an in-house fight and the fights are easier to make. There's more than one guy that could potentially have the fight. But also, would the WBO sanction number 1, which would be Usyk, versus number 14, which would be Chisora? And remembering, Chisora has a significant belt within the WBO, the Intercontinental title, yet they only placed him at number 14, which is quite interesting. But Parker at number 4, a former WBO champion, maybe they would sort of lean more that way in terms of making a fight with number 1 versus, say, number 4, or potentially he climbs to number 3. Number 1 over number 14 doesn't carry quite the same weight, even though I'm sure on the matchroom side of things, they could probably make more money from the Chisora fight. So there's going to be lots of interesting things that happen if a belt is vacated. Or you could see Oleksandr Uysk fight Derek Chisora in February or whenever, and there may be nothing on the line except the WBO mandatory, whereas, you know, a vacant belt holds a lot more luster. But we could see a step aside for Oleksandr Usyk. Maybe he will get paid, and paid quite well, to go behind Kubrat Pulev. What will the WBO allow? Interesting times. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.